Okay, so here we have the swash plate, and I've laid out the parts that we need to install. There's a carbon ring which bolts onto the bottom with these 3 smaller screws. We've got the anti-rotation pin which screws on here with this much longer screw. We've then got 2 balls, this one here and this one here, which have a slightly larger raised section on them that use these slightly longer screws and bolt onto the centre of the swash plate opposite each other, and then every other ball on the swash plate is the same and is mounted with these slightly shorter screws, slightly shorter than the ones used for here. But I'll build this up and then I'll go through it again so you can see how it goes together. Okay, so here we have our built swash plate. Let me just see if I can get a slightly tighter angle on this. Okay, there we go. So what I was talking about before is you can see these 2 balls here, this one and this one, have the slightly larger raised edge on them and are on the centre swash plate. And then all the other balls around the outside are just the ordinary balls. And then at the back here, this is where we would put our anti-rotation pin, but we don't actually install that one yet. We put the swash plate onto our main mast and then we install the pin through the anti-rotation slider on the machine. So I'll do that next. Just before I do that, one thing I forgot to mention is the carbon ring fitted to the bottom of the swash plate with 3 screws. You can see that there. Okay, so let's install this onto the machine and get the anti-rotation pin in. Okay, and there we have our anti-rotation pin installed, as you can see, and the swash plate in place. Now, one of the things I noticed when I installed this is that I was actually using the wrong screw. I was using this much longer screw, and this one is the one that should be used on the elevator servo, and I'd actually used the one that should be here for the swash anti-rotation pin. And you know if you've got these wrong because this screw will actually stick right through and foul the balls on the inside of the swash plate, which is exactly what happened with mine, and that made me realise I'd actually picked up the wrong screw for the elevator servo. And you switch them over and you should find that this screw here actually just comes completely flush when you fit it, and therefore you know you've got the right one. And this screw I need to put onto my elevator servo. Okay, and just for reference, here's my elevator servo horn, which is now fitted with the correct screw, and you can see that quite a bit of thread does come out the back end of the nut when you use that longer screw. Okay, so the next part of the build is building up the washout arms, and the first part of that is installing the bearings into the washout arms. And basically you have one of these bearings that goes in either side of the washout arm, and in the middle is one of these little spacers, and these have to be green Loctited into the space in the washout arm. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, and there we have the bearings installed with the little spacer in the middle. And the next task now is to install the balls onto these washout arms, and also the plastic down links. So I have the balls here, like that, and then also have here the plastic down links that need to be installed as well. Now, to install those plastic down links, we use a shouldered bolt, which I've also got here. There we go, you can see those there. Okay, and for installing the balls there is a long threaded screw, and that's those 2 there. Okay, and then the last thing we need to do is to install that all built onto our washout hub. So here is our washout hub, and then we have 2 screws which we install our arms onto that with, which are those there. So I'll take this a step at a time and build that up, starting with installing the balls onto the arms. Okay, so there we have the balls installed onto the arms. Next thing is to mount up the plastic downlinks. Okay, and that's the downlinks installed. You have to put some thread lock on these screws that go in here, and they only go on the way that I've got them shown here. Also, make sure you only use a little bit of thread lock, because you don't want to get this whole thing gunked up, because this is basically just a plastic part running on a shouldered metal screw, and if you get too much Loctite in there, it will just all gunk. So just a little tiny bit of Loctite, just enough to hold that screw in place on that downlink. Okay, so the last thing to do is to bolt those to our washout base, which I'll now go ahead and do. Okay, and that's our washout arms completed. Just Loctited this screw here, either side, into the washout base, you can see, and that can now be slid onto our main mast and connected up to the swash plate. Okay, and then we have the washout installed onto the swash plate. One thing to know before you install this is that when you come to put these downlinks onto the swash plate ball, you'll find that they are in fact back to front, so you'll have to apply quite a lot of pressure in order to get this downlink to fit. But they will go on either way, as the manual states. It's just that if you build it exactly as it shows in the manual, you'll find that it is in fact back to front here, and that the open-ended part of the ball link is actually out, and the closed end of the ball link is towards the ball. So quite a lot of pressure required to snap those on. Okay, so we're now on to building the main rotor head and blade grips, etc., etc.